Now, there is no doubt about it that Snow White 2025 is considered by far one of the worst box office failures, not just with Disney, but also in the entire film history when it comes down to live-action remakes. We already know that it's right up there with, of course, Dragon Ball Evolution on the IMDb rating score, along with many other films that are actually sharing a very similar score, and that's exactly what's really financially scaring Disney at this point. We know that they are in full-on frantic mode as we speak because Bob Iger, the board of directors, the many executives over there, they are seeing the negative press. They are seeing how Snow White is just staying in the mainstream media, and they're also about to face a major challenge. We have a Minecraft movie dropping today that's also going to dwindle the numbers at a very high rate for Snow White. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Snow White 2025 is that yes, we know that it has a lot of problems going for it, not just limited to the Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot drama going on both behind closed doors and in the public eye. But we also have the fact that Rachel Zegler was very difficult to work with. She was uncontrollable to many, points by the Disney company that they themselves really couldn't even keep a grasp on. They really could not know how to deal with the whole Rachel Zegler situation. But this is where things get even worse, where Bob Iger finally got the punishment that he deserves from, of course, the Disney themselves when it comes down to the board of directors. There's a lot of things going on right now between the board, the executives, and Bob Iger himself. There's a major divide after Snow White just bombed at the box office, to a degree that, by the way, we have never seen before in many years by the Disney company. Now, with the Walt Disney Company and its many executives now heavily divided after the failure of Snow White due to Disney CEO Bob Iger and Rachel Zegler, one monumental development going on now involves more to do with how Bob Iger was recently punished in the most unexpected way possible after the box office nightmare for Disney. Now, one crucial update to this entire situation now involves how more than half the board of directors recently had an emergency meeting after the second week of Snow White's box office metrics failed miserably across the board, where they gave Bob Iger an ultimatum to either step down now in 2025, an entire year early, or to cancel a series of films that were sure to fail. Now get this, the board recently pressured Bob Iger to cancel the new Tangled live-action remake that was just about to actually head into production, as they were aiming for a 2027 or 28 release date window. This entire project as of now is on pause and serves as punishment toward Bob Iger, since this is a project that he himself came up with in the first place that was greenlit some time ago. The Tangled live-action remake was also going to be yet another film that would focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and the concept of race-swapping certain characters in the live-action version. Already 75% of the board members at Disney successfully forced Bob Iger to pause and more than likely cancel this entire film. They are also discussing the possibility of canceling the upcoming Blade movie by Marvel, however that has not been finalized as of yet. That film also reportedly has extreme flaws that need to be corrected as soon as possible. Now, Iger's Tangled live-action remake was best described as one of the films that was also going to insert pronouns into the actual movie and its storyline, much like what they did with the Acolyte series. You guys may recall they dropped pronouns in them, in that series, where the character Osha said they, them, and all this nonsense. Now, the board, get this, is now finally convinced that DEI is just not working for their business model, at least when it now involves Disney's live-action remakes. Now, what's interesting about this is the fact that you have Bob Iger is the one who doubled down on the Tangled live-action remake to include pronouns, race-swapping specific key characters, and everything to do with DEI going out of control. And it goes to show you exactly what's going on with Bob Iger and why he literally tanked the Walt Disney Company. It was a major mistake to bring him back after the Chapek era, and it's also a major mistake to keep Bob Iger for an entire year and a half extra after Snow White. Now, the board is now forcing a full-fledged decision by next week to either cancel the film entirely or to start from scratch by restarting the entire process over again. However, it's reportedly looking very likely now that the Tangled live-action remake will never happen due to the budgeting metrics that were around, get this, $230 million without marketing expenses factored in. A very expensive film at that served as a high-risk release for the Disney company. Now, Bob Iger is reportedly enraged over the board's mandate to pause Tangled and likely cancel the entire film, or else they are going to call for him to step down one whole year earlier than expected, as he's supposed to call it quits by 2026 sometime. Now guys, again, like I've said before in the past, this just goes to show you that the Disney company is heavily divided. Yes, you still have some board of directors there that are 100% supportive over Bob Iger's decisions, over what he's trying to do with DEI. And look, we know exactly who invests in the Disney company, and let's not forget the top three shareholders, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, and they are all for DEI. And I can only imagine what's going to happen once you have some projects getting canceled that we're going to full-fledged, double down on DEI. It's going to be quite interesting to see whether or not those top three shareholders stick around or not. We'll have to wait and see. But the fact that you have the Tangled live-action remake now going down the drain, and how the board of directors are now beginning to turn on Bob Iger, this just goes to show you exactly the current status of Disney and how much trouble they truly are in. The fact that they're also being investigated by the FCC, I don't know if you knew about this, but they are, over their DEI practices and overusing DEI in a very odd way. We all saw what they did with many properties out there, whether it was Star Wars, Marvel, or Disney live-action remakes in this case, or even some animated films when it came down to Pixar in the past. I mean, there were many examples where Disney really just went out of control when it came to diversity, equity, and inclusion, that really just alienated tons of customers that just walked away from the Disney company for good and called it quits with them. But this is where it gets even more interesting, is that the board is also forcefully putting out feelers to selling out parts of Star Wars. Now, it's unclear if this is related to the films, merchandise, or other forms of the property like Lucasfilm, for example. However, the issue is that there are no buyers interested. Now, this is all said to be a direct result of Snow White and its abysmal reviews and box office results. That's not only, of course, giving them negative press, but also a bad reputation now that's stuck in the mainstream media. And again, we also have a fact here that you have once trusted critics, or shills if you will, that gave out good reviews for the Walt Disney Company no matter what, that are also now turning against the Disney Company. And that really is also another major sign about the current status of where Disney's at right now, where Bob Iger's at, and I think it's going to show you exactly at the end of the day what's going on with this overall company in the coming days. The fact that you also have Bob Iger trying to resist against the board of directors, and how he's growing very enraged over their decision, over their ultimatum, their mandate, if you will, to just say, we're not using the Tangled movie anymore. We're putting this thing on pause. It's either going to be completely redone with no DEI, or it's just going to get canceled altogether. And look, it's very likely that this thing will get canceled outright. It's not looking good for the Tangled live-action remake. And like the common saying goes, if it's not broken, why fix it, right? I think it should just stay as an animated movie, and that's just that. That's just my point of view on things. But overall, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about the whole Disney situation related to Bob Iger, the board of directors that are now heavily divided. More, people that are actually against Bob Iger now. But overall, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.